Hi, and welcome back to the Coaching Support Summit. This is day one, and I am the final speaker today. So basically, what I am going to talk about, for it as a tool to support us during these times, and in fact, we can use working with our chakras anytime that we come across an obstacle in our life or a story in a life that we actually want to change or help us to get along and to move along and not to be stuck in the stories of our life. That is the way I use the chakras. I show people how our own energy centers, we can work with them in order to deal better with situations, because as some of the speakers mentioned earlier, it's our life stories to date that have brought us to where we are. And it's the emotions around those stories that have formed when we were young that get triggered now in times like this, in times where there's a lot of unknown situations going on, and in times where a lot of emotions like fear can come up because there isn't a precedent for us. We don't know, we're not given a rule book to tell us, or a guidebook to tell us how to work through our own personal stories in times like this. And because that's the reason, is because we each as well have our own unique stories, and we'll each feel emotions in a different way. Well, we'll feel them in the same way, but we won't have the same backstories as the next person, because we're all such unique people. So basically, to describe what a chakra is, the chakras are our energy centers of our body. We have 7 major chakras, and the first one is, if you're sitting down right now, it's the closest one to the seat you're sitting on. Basically, it's situated at the base of our spine. And they work up then, the 7 chakras, main ones, up to the top of our head. The 7th one is the crown chakra. I will go through each one of them individually and really talk about, I suppose, how stories and emotions can be triggered right now around the different awarenesses, because each of these chakras have an awareness attached to them. Okay, so we'll start with, I suppose, a brief introduction to energy. You know, we're all made of energy. Our hair grows, our nails grow, everything in our outside in our environment in nature is made from energy. The trees, the leaves, where we have growth, we have energy. And so when we work with something like our chakras, what we're doing is we're working on our own energetic body. We have a physical body that we can see. We have our body, our bones, the physical part, but also we have an emotional body. And we know this because we feel it. Like at times, if we get triggered by something like maybe standing up speaking in public, if we've had an experience in the past where maybe we were ridiculed, we may feel an energetic reaction like fear come up for us when we have to do the same thing again, like talk in public. So the butterflies in our tummy, the feeling like we're being stabbed in our heart, these are all energetic reactions we're feeling to an outside stimulus. Something that gets triggered in the outside helps our body, as the last speaker spoke about as well, our brain scans the memories of all the past stories we've had in our life to come up with a way to help us to deal with it. So if our brains, if we feel very fearful now, and our brain scans and go, to let us know how to deal with how we feel, what action we're going to take, it's likely that an old story we have where we felt fear before around a similar type of a story will get triggered and will come up for us now. And that's why we want to lean into the stories that we have in the past and to release any charge that they have on us, so that we can be less fearful around something that happened in the past, but that's getting triggered in the present moment for us. So basically, why we want to do this is that we want to be able to feel the emotions in the present moment for what they are. Now, obviously, a lot of the emotions around fear are unknown to us, but the emotion fear, we will often, and most of us will have old stories of fear still in our psyche that we want to release. or that we want to at least be aware of, as to maybe why we're reacting in a certain way to a certain story. So this will become more apparent as I go on through the chakras. So we start with the first, and actually also I like to liken the chakras to train stops along. If we were doing a journey from, let's say, Galway to Dublin in Ireland, we might stop at different stations along the way. And it's the same with our energy. The chakras, I like to describe them as the different stations along that route, which each of them having a different awareness, like I mentioned. So energy travels through our chakras, up and down. And I'll also explain the different motions of letting things flow and how we can use our chakras to on the upward and on the downward. Our first chakra is situated at the base of our spine and is known as our root chakra. As I say, if you're sitting down, you're sitting on your root chakra. This, when it started to develop, actually the root chakra develops when we're in the womb. It's the first chakra to be made aware in our body because it's our foundation. Our root chakra is all about survival. When we're born, we actually rely on others to have our needs met. We rely on someone to feed us, to change us, to do all the things in order for us to survive. It's also where stories around trust start to form, or our feelings around trust, and how we perceived our basic needs were met in our very young state. So a lot of the stories we'll have in all of our chakras revolve around the word perception. If a baby feels nurtured, if they're fed when they need feeding, if they feel safe, that they're not going to be dropped, all of these basic needs, then it's likely that a person, and this applies for most of us, thankfully, but if there's some sort of story that we carry around with us in relation to not having those basic needs met, they may be unconscious to us because they happen to us at such an early time of our lives where we might not be able to remember. And that's how we hold on to stories unconsciously. And emotions around the stories are unconscious to us. How we perceived, let's say we didn't have enough food when we were young, maybe we were unfortunately neglected in some way, and we didn't have our basic needs met, we will form stories, unconscious memories, limiting beliefs around that. Now, there again, a child might perceive that there's a lack of something, whilst really that isn't the truth of the situation, but that's how they perceived their situation. And I often mention to people that four children will likely have very different stories about their childhood. And it's amazing. They may have the same parents, but they'll have different memories, and they perceived things differently. So it's all a matter of how our perception, but the basic needs are basic, and they're physiological needs that we need, fundamental needs that we need to survive. So if we find that we have anything coming up in relation to trust, not just now, but ever in our lives, trust is very much a first chakra foundational issue. One way we can deal with the chakras is by just doing something I did there. I stopped and I breathed with the intention of focusing on my first chakra, which, if you can imagine, is just an energy center at the base of your spine. If you're not very good with visualizing what it is, that's no problem. It comes with time. And some people prefer to look at a book to find out where their chakras are, and that's all okay. For now, I'd like you to just imagine a red light at the end of your spine, because the first chakra is associated with the color red, and colors also have a vibration. So the vibration of red is the color that it's associated with the first chakra. So if you want to imagine a red light at the end of your spine, You can breathe into it. This is our foundation in life, and all of the other chakras build from our feelings and our beliefs around the first chakra basics, like how we feel our basic needs were met, and also our trust issues. Now, they don't have to have been met 100%, nor do any of the awarenesses, because there will be times in our lives when trust issues will come up for us, and it doesn't mean that we won't be ever able to trust, or it doesn't mean that we didn't have our needs met. It just means that we can go back and look at it in the first chakra and make sure that the foundation around our trust issues is intact. So we move up to the next chakra, which is situated 2 centimeters under our belly button, and it's known as the sacral chakra. For women, this is the seat of our womb and our reproductive organs. It's also our emotional center, whether we're male or female. So the second chakra is associated with the color yellow. And what we find when this chakra gets blocked and we have a lot of stuck emotions, as in we have a lot of stories where emotions have been involved and we haven't processed them. This is likely where we feel blocks in our second chakra, the sacral. So when I work with clients around, let's say fears over fertility and that, this is a chakra where we can look at to ensure that we're not holding on to stories around anything that will stay here, the energy of the stories in this beautiful second chakra area. Because if we have stuck energy here, it will stop us it will hold us back. We need to lean into what's stuck in our second chakra, lean into the emotions that are stuck there and release them. So there are various ways and tools, of course, that we can do this. And one of them is by firstly being aware of the energy centers like the chakras. And that's the tool I'm giving you today. There again, if you want to breathe into this center, you can visualize the color yellow, situated 2 centimeters under your belly button. And see anything that comes up for you. The next chakra is our power center. It's the solar plexus. It's situated around our tummy area. It's where we feel butterflies in our tummy. And just like our physical stomach is where we metabolize our food, the power center is where we metabolize our feelings. It's where we get stopped by our own self. If we try to get out of our comfort zone, we'll be pulled back in. It's our center of self-esteem and our confidence. We might feel we have a new project we want to bring in the world, and we write it, very excited about it. We go up along to the second chakra and we feel the emotions that we have around it. We might overcome the fear. Then we come up to bring it out into the world. And one of the places that we can get stuck in is with our confidence and our self-esteem. And it's likely that the stories and the feelings we have around those stories are stuck in our power center, our solar plexus in our stomach area. And this is associated with the color yellow. Think of the solar, the sun, the yellow, the power center. It's how we shine in the world. And it's one of the chakras that really comes up a lot for healing on a continual basis at times. It's not just if we look at our chakras and we release stuff from them that we'll never get stuck there again. Life is a journey and we will have obstacles, but it's knowing, it's being aware where to go, which energy center to go to know where we're getting blocked, so that we can actually then realize, okay, this is my self-esteem issue coming up again, if we're feeling it around our stomach area, or this is my trust coming up again, it's first chakra. We'll begin to be able to be aware of where we're holding on to the tension. So if it's in our stomach area, and this is one that can get really, that is quite, as I say, it's one that I'll feel when I'm doing an energy session with someone where they'll have a lot of blocks in their stomach area on an emotional level. Now on a physical level as well, the emotional level, the emotions that we feel can manifest physically, and we might start to develop symptoms like IBS, anything to do with our stomach. We might develop pains in our stomach. They may be related to the stress we feel over our confidence and our self-esteem. We can always take a big deep breath into our power center, or into our power center, when we feel anything come up for us around this. The next chakra that we're going to speak about is our heart chakra, and this is associated as well with the organ of the heart, and it's situated in the center of our chest. This chakra has a lot to do with not just relationship love that we feel with another person. Obviously the heart is relationships, but it's also in relation to how we give ourselves self-love and how we care for ourselves, self-care. And this is a huge area that we want to ensure is as clear as we can possibly make it, so that we are able to have good relationships with others, but also with ourselves. If we hold any negative limiting beliefs that we're unworthy, we can hold that energy of those stories in our heart area. Unconsciously there again at times we can do this, and it will stop us from possibly giving ourselves the self-care we need. In times of trauma and stress, like the current situation we're going through now, we may find that we are looking after everybody else's needs bar our own. As a mother, as a father, each will have their own story around this. Maybe mom is at home minding the children, and maybe dad is out working, or vice versa. Each will have their own story around trying to fit in self-care for themselves. It mightn't even be coming up for people at the moment. It's like, well, I don't have time, I have to look after my children, or I don't have time because I have to go to work to make money. But at the end of the day, it's going back to when we get on a plane and we're told to, if in case of sudden cabin problems, that we take the air mask, or the mask, the oxygen mask, and we put it on ourselves first, so that we're able to help others. Giving ourselves 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day to do something that replenishes and nurtures us is an act of self-care, and a necessary one in order for us to be able to be what we feel we need to be for everybody else. It could be as simple as going into a room, closing the door, and becoming still, or doing something for you. Maybe it's doing 10 minutes of yoga, maybe it's half an hour of yoga, maybe it's 5 minutes of yoga, maybe it's listening to a meditation, maybe it's reading a book. It doesn't really matter what it is, as long as it's for you and it's to replenish and nourish you where you are right now. That's an act of self-care. That'll mean when you have got this time for yourself, you'll be able to reintegrate yourself with those around you in a way that you won't feel as though you've had no time for yourself. You will in fact be a better mother, parent, daughter, sister, whatever it is that you want to be for those around you. Our heart center is also where we get stuck if we want to put a project out into the world, but our heart isn't in it. Maybe we're following somebody else's path and we don't realize it. Our heart will stop us. We'll realize, oh, my heart isn't in this. I'm on the wrong track altogether. And that's okay. These are all just stories and we can change them. Better that we realize that now before we maybe go ahead and put a project out into the world. Or if we are working in the world and we realize our heart isn't in it, then we can realize that we need to pivot and change direction. And we can do that by really honing in, for what it is we actually do want. And using the chakras is a great tool to help us do this. The next chakra I'm going to speak about is our throat chakra, which is literally our throat area as well. A lot of the chakras have an organ attached to them, and the chakras are like, they're attached to the ganglia of nerves around the organs. That's why we have the feelings that we do in them, the energetic feelings. So the throat chakra has to do with communication, how we communicate to the world. And this incorporates also how we communicate to ourselves, as well as how we communicate to others around us, anything to do with communication. It also governs our ears, because our ears are obviously a part of communication, because we need to listen at times to things that people are telling us that could be for our own good. Maybe we don't want to hear them right now, but sometimes we need to listen to the advice of a well-meaning parent, a well-meaning husband, a well-meaning wife. So there again, it's associated with communication. When we are not speaking our truth to ourselves, when we are telling ourselves, perhaps, I don't need to look after myself, I haven't time, I'm okay, I'm really fine, I can do this, I don't need help. We're communicating that message to ourselves. But in fact, the truth is that we do all need to allow ourselves have self-care. We're not doing it to harm anyone. But there again, it's being aware of what we're saying, because what we're saying is how our life is panning out for us right now. If we're telling ourselves we're okay when we know deep down unconsciously we're not, then we're not accepting that we have needs, and we all are entitled to have our needs met. Okay, so I didn't mention the colour associated with the heart. The colour associated with the heart is green, and sometimes it's pink. Excuse me. The colour associated with the throat is a blue colour. So if you want to, now I'm obviously having something triggered here in my throat chakra too about self-care, because when we start to work on the chakras, we start to allow the energy to move. And when we do, things like this can happen. We can cough. You know, when I'm doing energy work on someone, they may feel energy moving themselves. They may have, their stomach may start rumbling. This is all energy moving. Throat chakras is one that most of us can look at and find something that we're not being truthful about to ourselves or to the world. There again, sometimes it's unconscious, but that's why looking at them is so good, because it helps us realize the reality that we tell ourselves around our actual life. This is the narrative, and we have the ability to change the narrative of our life stories by looking at the chakras. It's one of the tools we can use. Coming up to the next chakra, we have our third eye, which is situated in the center of our forehead. It's possibly one of the, well, it's definitely one of my favorite chakras to deal with, because it's like almost when this chakra is blocked with stories of what we tell ourselves about it, that we will be very blinkered to the truth of what's going on. Sometimes we actually tell ourselves that a story that isn't actually the truth, but it's our truth. It's our truth around the story. We might be so pigeonholed and so tunnel visioned that we can't see the reality of the story. There again, this could be unconscious. When we remove these blinkers, this is when we can have our aha moments, our moments of realization of the truth of what's actually going on around us. And that's when it's like pulling back the veils to open up and see the truth of what's going on. It's like when we open and realize, oh gosh, I didn't realize I was speaking that way about myself. That's an aha moment. That's a realization. That's using the third eye, as it's called, our internal eye, to look at the beliefs that we hold in all of the other chakras. It's also, of course, related to our intuition and our ability to know what we know before all the stories started getting layered from a very young age. It's our innate knowing. It's our gut instinct that, when we allow it, will guide us to our purpose and direction, and will guide us always as to how to act in any particular situation that comes up for us. But it can be blocked by false limiting beliefs that have gathered in all of the other chakras below. And that's why sometimes we can't tap into our gut instinct. So stopping and looking at this chakra, breathing into it, allowing ourselves to stop and realize the truths at each of the chakras below is a great way to open up, to take a big deep breath of fresh air, and to look at, to get a different perspective on what's going on for us. The last one I'm going to speak about is our crown chakra, which is situated on the top of our head. And really, what the crown chakra is, it's about our belief in something else in the world. It doesn't, and I'm not talking about a religion as such. If you are religious and you believe in a God, that's your connection with something outside you. Perhaps you believe in nature and its ability to renew, rebirth, and you look at nature as something that you're really connected with. It's your connection to something outside of yourself that makes you realize that the actions and the words that you speak actually have an effect on not alone yourself, but everyone around you. It's our connection to source, whatever that is, means for us. It's also our ability. Some people are connected with Mother Mary. Some people are connected with Goddess. Some people are connected to angels and rely on asking for help in times of crisis, trauma, whatever, or just on a daily basis saying a prayer for help. This is our crown chakra. And when we have the ability to really understand that our actions have a ripple effect, the collective, at the moment in some countries, there's at 8 o'clock at night, there's a clap that people are doing, a collective clap to thank all the health workers. That is something that is a belief in the ability of that action having a ripple effect. And this does work because energy goes where attention flows. The intention of these people that are clapping is to send a positive thank you, a positive vibration to our healthcare workers so that they can remain, God help them, remain and be able to do their jobs as best they can in these times of huge stress. So it's a collectiveness, knowing that we are part of the collective around us, that our actions ripple out. When we change ourselves, which is the only person that we can change in this world, we can't change other people. When we look at ourselves and change the way we are, this ripples out to other people around us. Now, if you are in conflict with someone, that I am not saying that what the other person is doing to you is right. They may be powering over you. There could be any sort of situation. So it's to understand that whilst you can't change that person, you can change your reaction to them. You can become empowered yourself so that you can stand in your own sovereign power. And one of the ways you can do this is by using the chakra system. I am going to give a link for a free introduction to working with the chakras to give you a better idea. Today I went, in this short introduction to them, I went up through each one, letting you know the awarenesses. And I will also include a meditation for all of the chakras so that you can tune into them anytime you wish in order to get some, excuse me, some clarity on anywhere that you may be stuck in any of your chakras at any time in your life. So that is my introduction to the chakras, and I hope that you've enjoyed this time learning about these wonderful energy centers. We all have them whether we are aware of them or whether we work with them or not, they're there, and they're being worked on every day in how we talk, how we speak, how we go through life with our stories. So I'll attach a link that you can use a meditation to go deeper in with your chakras if this is something you're interested in doing. Thanks for being here.